Jim Breslow. Find us at hiddentruthshow.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Hidden Truth Show. Watch our YouTube channel, Hidden Truth Show. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on your podcast app. Here's Jim Breslow.
Welcome back to the Hidden Truth Show. Today we have a special Academy Awards episode. Last Sunday, the South Korean movie Parasite, in a big upset, somehow surpassed the 8 other nominees to become the first ever foreign language film to win the Oscar for Best Picture. It is a mildly humorous film which turns very dark by the end. It involves a desperately poor family which connivingly manages to obtain work from a wealthy family and then takes advantage of that relationship, to say the least. It certainly depicts the struggles of the poor, but what the message is, if there is one at all, is muddled, to say the least. Is this just the latest example of Hollywood being out of touch with most of America, proving how liberal and open-minded it can be by rewarding a foreign film about poverty in response to Trump's America First policy? To talk about it, we turn to a true international film expert, Michael Kutza. Kutza founded the Chicago International Film Festival in 1964. It continues today as one of the oldest and most prestigious film festivals in the world. Kutza is a much celebrated film expert. He has received awards from the Cannes and Venice Film Festivals, as well as the City of Chicago's 30th Anniversary Award and the Chicago Sun-Times Award for Exceptional Contribution to Chicago. Chicago Magazine included Kutza in their list of the top 40 Chicago visionaries, alongside of Oprah Winfrey, Barack Obama, and Roger Ebert. Before we get to the interview, I want to invite you to support the show by becoming a truther. For just $5 a month, you can join us and receive access to special episodes, receive personal emails from me, email access to me, and receive an embroidered Hidden Truth baseball cap. In addition, you get the great feeling of supporting independent journalism, which is so important today in the age of the biased mainstream media and Silicon Valley executives regulating speech. We need your help. Go to patreon.com/Hidden Truth Show. That's patreon.com/Hidden Truth Show to become a truther. And we thank everybody who has already joined up and supported the show by becoming a truther. Okay, now for our interview with international film expert Michael Kutza. You're the perfect person to be discussing Parasite with because of your expertise and long-standing experience with international films. So I got to assume that you were celebrating when it won.
Frankly, I was more surprised because of the old traditions of the Academy and the way they just year after year followed the tradition of let's have a film that relates either to Hollywood or to the sensibility of our older members of the Academy. I was actually quite surprised. But then again, nothing surprises me with the Netflix of the world and the power and the publicity and the money that people have been pouring into these campaigns. And
boy, do we see that. I don't know if the rest of the country sees it quite like we see it here in Los Angeles, but that is something really.
No one sees the billboards on Sunset Boulevard,
Yeah, well, it's we've always had the billboards advertising the latest movies here, but starting a few years ago, we started seeing huge money being poured into promoting the various films for awards. You might be aware that the LA Times, the LA Times is making a ton of money off of it. It's probably the only reason LA Times is still around is they have a new section called The Envelope, and The Envelope is solely dedicated to awards. And it used to come out once or twice before the Oscars, and now it's pretty much year-round, this envelope section of the newspaper that's kind of once a week during the off-season, and then it gets up to almost daily as you get into the season. And, there's real articles in there, but it's mostly advertisements, all promoting.
Well, the kind of stuff that I read, like Variety and Hollywood Reporter, because they are the same thing, page after page after page of promoting whatever it was, Roma last year, or Parasite, or Irishman, or that's what I figure keeps Variety and Hollywood Reporter alive as well. Those ads, those color, incredible ads.
Well, the win for Parasite you could probably put a number on that, and the number's got to be at least $50 million for winning.
Probably. Parasite was distributed by a brand new company, and they're showing what they can do. It's called Neon. And it's a gentleman, Tom Quinn, who used to work for Harvey Weinstein years ago and did so many sections of the Weinstein empire film-wise, then ended up in documentaries, and then started his own company. And this year it's called Neon. The guy's a terrific guy, and this Parasite is his baby. It's the second film he's ever started to promote, and I think he's showing what he can do.
And so did Neon actually produce? Did Neon actually produce the show, the movie, or just distribute it?
They are distributing it, and that they've done the campaign. But I mean, as much as I like Parasite and the director's previous film and all, I don't consider it the best film of the year, and I can't imagine people truly enjoying it, because you're going to tell me that people in Kansas or Mid-America are really, once they sit through this film, are going to really go home saying, "Hey, let's take the kids next time"? I don't think so.
Well, let me tell you my little thoughts on Parasite, and then we'll dig into it a little bit, because I think it is a really interesting thing to discuss for on multiple levels. I saw the movie, and I saw all of the Best Picture nominees, and after I saw the movie, I thought it was good, not great, and we'll get into the details of that. But I was thinking, just reading the tea leaves of Hollywood and the mindset and the anti-Trump sentiment, et cetera, I thought this is the year that they are going to reward an international movie to show how truly open-minded they are, et cetera. And so I came out of Parasite thinking, yep, it's going to win. And it was I like to gamble occasionally, and it was a 3-1 underdog. So you could
you did.
Well, so let me. I'll finish the story. So I check it, and it's a 3-1 underdog. It was the second favorite to 1917. So then, before I placed my bet, I see 1917, which is, I thought, just absolutely incredible, spectacular, et cetera. And I walked out of thinking, there's no way Parasite is going to be able to beat this movie. So I changed my mind. Instead of betting on Parasite, which is what my gut told me to do, after seeing 1917, I said, no way it's going to lose. So I had to lay 250 to win 100, because it was such a favorite, on 1917. And of course I lost. So, but do you agree with it sounds like you agree with my sentiment that, Parasite was good, not great. And its win not really great. Demonstrates that the Academy was trying to send a message.
Well, I got to tell you, my favorite films, obviously we're not going to agree on films, but it's a subjective thing. I was head over heels of Tarantino. I'm very nostalgic about Hollywood. I like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I like Marriage Stories. I like a substantive film. I think 1917 was totally empty and meaningless, and just a technological, beautiful looking thing that you got to see on a big screen. I was afraid it was going to win, because that was once again the tradition of the old Academy. Parasite, I'm rather shocked that it is the best film of the year, because it isn't. It isn't.
Mm-hmm.
However, I enjoyed the guy's film. His previous, if you've never seen it, the thing was called Snowpiercer, I think it was called, in English. Made a lot of money. It's become a cult film, and it's about a train that has all of humanity on it. So you have the lowest class at the end, the middle class, and the upper class, and everyone that's left in the world is on this train, racing endlessly, perpetual motion into the snow. And it's a thrilling film, and in English, and it's the predecessor of Parasite. And I could see, okay, the Academy people, they know this man because he's very successful before, like they knew Roma. Did you follow the whole Roma nonsense last year? I mean, they spent $100 million on publicity for Roma, the Mexican film. They did get Best Director out of it. They wanted Best Picture. That's a Netflix job. It didn't get it, but the Academy is familiar with the foreign director, the Mexican director. They're familiar with this Bong Joon-ho. But I'm still shocked that it won Best Film, because it isn't the best film, and it's certainly not a crossover film for the majority of audiences that I think are going to leave it being rather annoyed by it turning into a horror film. A lot of people don't like horror films. Mm-hmm. And you walked into a nice, friendly family comedy that gets dark. and very dark.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my feeling. Is that I think audiences will be quite annoyed. I mean,
yeah, I kind of put it in the. I kind of likened it to sort of a Twilight Zone type of movie. I kind of likened it to Get Out, which actually I loved. Get Out.
Sure.
But something that just kind of goes in some really strange directions that you did not anticipate. I thought that Hollywood would probably really embrace the class element of it because they love to bemoan the 1%. So this was the 1% versus the 99%, which gets into the substance of the movie a little bit, which I wanted to ask you your thoughts about. That I've seen people try to analyze this film, and they've talked about how these elitist 1%ers, all they care about is their party and their cowboys and Indians, and here's this poor family struggling, losing their home, barely able to put food on the table, and all this elitist family is worried about is their next party. And so
you get to that point midway in the film, but really it was such a naive family. The wife is the only one that was, I think, worried about parties and her this and that. The rest, there seemed to be a naive husband and a pleasant family. Incredible house, by the way. How'd you like to live in that house?
Not bad. I don't know if I want to live in Korea, but I like the house.
Well, that to me that looked like Beverly Hills to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, but did you like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? I've seen it a couple of times. That's my kind of film, the old Hollywood.
I love Tarantino. Yeah. I loved that movie. The ending of it, I was not super fond of because I just thought that it was trivializing a little bit what happened. I know some people have the exact opposite reaction that, hey, this is great. He's rewriting history and writing out these Manson people. But for me, it's like, wow, like it's kind of making light a little bit of these very, very serious murders. So, and it got crazy violent, which Tarantino loves and I don't particularly love. Right. So anyway, I'll just say I love the movie until the last 10 minutes.
But you liked the violence in Parasite?
No, I don't like.
My God,
you know what?
I'm not a.
I hate the extreme violence that they have now in Hollywood, and I'm no goody when it comes to that kind of stuff. It's just like for me personally, seeing someone plunge a large knife into someone else, I can't watch that. And I know some people can, and I guess those are the type of people that are doctors are more indifferent to that type of stuff. But for me, it's just not enjoyable at all to see that. Yet there's certain directors, like your Scorsese's and so on, who love depicting graphic violence. A lot of these superhero movies have tons of graphic violence.
I'm not a fan. I'm not a Marvel fan. All of that. But speaking of Scorsese, how'd you like The Irishman? I thought it was yes, overly long, but a brilliant wrap up of his career and those films of his, that genre. I mean,
so I love Casino and I love Goodfellas and I loved almost everything that he's done. Right. That one was not as entertaining as his other ones. The Irishman was not as entertaining. I don't think.
I agree.
But
it was the length, but
yeah, and 45 minutes too long. I didn't understand the need to show him getting old. Is his name Sheeran? The De Niro character?
Yeah.
I mean, what was the point of showing for 45 minutes, showing him get old? I mean, everybody gets old. So that's not unique to mobsters. So I wasn't quite getting that.
What's interesting about film criticism today, when the critics around the world reviewed Irishman, all they talked about was this anti-aging technology. When they reviewed 1917, all they talked about was this camera work or maybe one continuous shot. No one's really talking about what the film and the feeling and the acting's all about. We're talking about the technology today. I think that's happened a lot with these Marvel films and this stuff, special effects department.
Mm-hmm.
Like Marriage Story, I was blown away by it. Simple tale of divorce. I love that movie.
Yeah, it was
Was
incredibly.
the best picture of the year? No, it's not the best picture of the year, but what great performances! My goodness, what a story! What a story!
Yeah, that could only have been written by someone who had some personal experience, which I understand that he did. I just got married 4 months ago, and unfortunately, I saw that movie
for the first time.
Well, second time.
All right. Okay.
I parts of it were familiar to me, and then I saw it a month after I just got remarried 4 months ago, and I'm thinking, damn, I should have seen this movie before.
I have a feeling it would be a great film to see before. But what surprised me is that I'm totally a novice on this. I didn't know that lawyers were costing $680 an hour or more. That blew me away when the young lady hires a lawyer in L.A. at that price. And I guess that's quite common. I mean, you're a lawyer. What do lawyers cost today per hour? My goodness.
At the big law firms, over $1,000 an hour is very common. Over $1,000 an hour. So yeah. Divorce is just ugly. Fortunately, I didn't have a child, so that made it a lot simpler. It was only about money.
Sure.
But when you combine children with having to decide custody as well as decide money, and I've seen this again and again with friends and so on, it almost becomes impossible for them it not to be money for children, because you're negotiating one thing over here and the other thing over here, but oftentimes you're trying to leverage the money for the child or trying to leverage the child for the money, and it's really disgusting, but it's just very real. It's just it's inevitable, because you've got lawyers deciding these two things at the same time. And
I like the New York lawyer as opposed to the LA lawyer and all. But speaking of the Oscars, the thing that annoyed me, first of all, somehow, and I don't see it ever happening in my lifetime, changing the format of that same show, every year. No matter how you produce it, whether you make it a Broadway glitz and glamour show, it still ends up being that same award show, the same tradition. I think you need to shake that up as well as shaking up the award. All ahead of time, all the PR is saying, it's the white man's award show. And of course, the 8,000 voters are, as I was looking at numbers today, 77% white old men are the voters. And when I saw the show come on, and suddenly the presenters and the big musical numbers are African-American singers, dancers, and I thought, okay, they're trying to cover their ass, because it really is the old guys putting this show together, and they're just suddenly, they complain, okay, there are no black directors up there, there are no women, there's no this or that, but it is the same old Hollywood Academy Awards show, and I think that has to change. Will Parasite change it? I don't know. Foreign film, of course, it was going to win foreign film. The only other thing that could have won would be the Almodovar film, Pain and Glory, because that's his life story, and there it is on screen. But Parasite was going to win from square one. I am absolutely surprised that it got Best Picture. Of course, director, no problem, because they gave it to the Mexican director last year.
Well, let's just finish on Parasite before we go on to those other subjects, because I wanted to give you my thought as to what I thought perhaps the message of it, if there was a message to the movie. And I think you make a very good point of being too focused on the technical in these movies and not focused on the story. And okay, what really
they don't talk about stories anymore.
The
Parasite story is simple. It's the class distinction, and that's the bottom line.
But we all know there's a class distinction. So what was the message or point that they were trying to get across in Parasite?
Basically, revolution or taking over. It's simple.
So you think it was kind of a microcosm of a revolution? This family was basically casting out the rich, like a communist revolution.
Yeah, cleverly written and directed. My God, every nuance and how it slowly turns into this taking over the naive rich people and the upper class. brilliantly done. Brilliantly done.
Okay, so
I'm
if
really
it was
annoyed,
about,
I'm annoyed by the end. We shouldn't really tell people that haven't seen all this stuff we're talking about.
well, yeah, I don't think we've really given away an ending per se, but if you believe this was a representation on a micro level of essentially what would have been a communist revolution, what does this movie have to say about it?
I can't say communist resolution.
Well, but we just like, well, I say communist just because you're talking about poor versus rich. That basically, hey, we're all, just because you have money doesn't mean you deserve the money. Communism is about redistribution of wealth. So if you're talking about a revolution that's based on money, that's essentially, with the poor overtaking the rich. I'd call that a communist revolution, but whatever, it's a revolution. But okay, so if that's what it was, what is the movie saying about that? Is it in favor of that, or is it opposed to that?
Well, first of all, it doesn't succeed. It takes over and destroys, but then they all get destroyed as well. I mean, who really survived that film? 2 people, I think. Mm-hmm. I think back on it. It wasn't a very happy revolution. And they made their point. They took over the family in every single way, but they all died except 2 people, as I recall. Yeah. I've only seen it once.
Yeah. So my little takeaway is, if you think about the members of the poor family versus the members of the rich family, each one of the members of the poor family exhibited horrendous behavior and conduct. Just not good people. Each one of them exhibited some very bad behavior, whereas the wealthy family, they welcomed them in, very friendly toward them.
Naive, yes.
Okay, naive. Well, you can call it naive. I can call it generous and nice, and friendly.
Yeah.
So
there was no threat. They saw no threat. I would not have seen any threat because they appeared to be level-headed, good people.
Right. So anyway, my little simpleton takeaway from it, because I don't know what the message was, but what I like to take away from it is that, you know what? There are good people and bad people at all different income in economic, along the economic strata. You can't just assume 1%ers are bad and 99%ers are good, because here is an example of the 1%ers being the good, naive, innocent, honest, generous people. And there was the poor people that were the bad, manipulative, unappreciative people, and so you can find them at any income level. So that would turn it on its head, perhaps, from what Hollywood may have thought that it was celebrating. But that's the message that I took away from it.
It's interesting. You've just wrapped up this film, and I hadn't considered that the Snowpiercer film, his previous film, is exactly the same story. It's the lower class of the end of the train that's slowly working its way through the train, dispersing or killing or whatever each person or class level to reach first class and to stop it and destroy it. I didn't realize it's the same story.
So that was his first film?
No, Snowpiercer is his previous film.
His previous film.
I don't know how many films the guy's actually made. I don't know.
Interesting. Well, okay, let's go back to talk about the Oscars, since that's just happened. So number one, it was lowest rated in many years. I think that...
Yeah, so I noticed. I'm glad they moved the date earlier, because there's too many of these award shows. You get tired of them. And who won all the others? The same award winners won.
Yeah. So it certainly needs a shakeup. I mean, one observation that I have, in fact, this will also be a question for you. I mean, when you're giving away a sound editing award, which nobody knows anything about sound editing, and occasionally they'll kind of explain it to you, which... but they only do that like once every 10 years. And then you give out an award for sound mixing. And now I'm really scratching my head thinking, okay, I barely think I know what sound editing might be, but what the hell is sound mixing versus sound editing?
So next year, in the future, why don't they show us what this stuff means? I mean, why don't you show me how you edit a film and how you make the sound? I mean, I think this could be a great education as well as an entertainment.
Totally agree.
Suddenly,
it needs to pick a direction. It either needs to be the Grammys, where it's all about performances, or it needs to be, if it wants to give out these technical awards, then yes, explain them to us. Because if you want to help,
show us examples. Show us how it works.
Right. I mean, they barely show examples of. They barely show the examples of the acting. That's another thing that really they should be showing more of is, okay, let's see a solid minute and a half of this guy's acting performance in this movie, and then the next one, and the next one. Someone
suggested in some write-up, why don't they show a trailer of the actual movie? Because the trailers are about 2 or 3 minutes. Why not show a trailer of each of these 10 or 9 winning films? Entertain us as well as educate us,
Yeah. Yeah, it needs to pick a direction. I mean, one thought I had is move those technical awards into a separate show. If you really did explain it in that separate show and gave examples and so on, I think you'd have a nice audience for that show.
I would love to watch a show like that. I like all of that. The technical aspect of it all. Did you notice they kept announcing at every break, and next time we'll be presenting the Irving Thalberg Award, but they never did. They never presented the Irving Thalberg Award. That sort of mystified me. I wanted to look that up because they give one every year, and they didn't this year.
And what is that award for?
I assume a lifetime achievement kind of thing or something.
I'm trying to remember. Was there no lifetime achievement award?
I don't think so. No, there was at the Golden Globes.
Yeah,
but not at the Oscars. And
that's
these musical number things. The musical number things. I don't know. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. So one year, a friend of mine, Neil Marin, he got to produce the show. I think it was 4 years ago. And he did Hairspray. He produced on Broadway, and then he produced the movie Chicago with Harvey and Miramax and everybody. And he got to do the Oscar 4 years ago. So he turned it into a Broadway show. But then it still ended up the same old routine, the same everything. Yes, he added the glitz, as I said, the glitz and the glamour and dancing and singing and blah, blah, blah. And then it ends up the same old thing. And I think you do need, by the way, I don't know, how do you feel about an MC? I think an MC sort of does, the flow works better, but
yeah.
Maybe I'm too old, and I like Billy Crystal and all those characters that used to introduce these shows.
Well, I think you and I are onto something. I think that give us more of the actual guts. This isn't the Tonys. This isn't the Grammys. Yeah.
Because we all love movies, I guess.
Well, and this is the Oscars. This is trying to be more highbrow. That this is the real deal. I mean, this is the Super Bowl of award shows. And especially, as I said, if you're going to give away those technical awards, you need to explain those better. Which, by the way, considering that you're a film expert, can you explain to us what the difference between sound editing and sound mixing is?
I really can't.
I mean, that's incredible. I mean, somebody as experienced as you are.
Think of let's go back to 1917. You clearly have to mix, because you have so many tracks of explosions and this and that. And yes, you're going to match and mix, and maybe it's that simple.
Okay. And then what is the editing?
I hate you.
You should have brushed up on this. I put this in the email that I was going to ask you this. You should have at least Googled it. Well, that's what we'll suggest everybody do. Anybody wants to know the answer, probably very few, but yeah, just Google sound mixing and sound editing, and we'll figure it out. What about Netflix?
What about the world changing? What about Netflix and the theater business? What about what's going on? What's about to happen or is happening?
Yeah. Well, and I think it's a generational thing, and that, there's so much now being produced for television, and it does seem to be, frankly, better content. One thing that strikes me when I'm searching for a movie to go see, and now I rely on Rotten Tomatoes, like I think most people probably do, or a lot of people do, which gives you the average review. It's striking to me how many movies, and it's crazy expensive to make and market a movie these days that's actually going to be released in a theater. How many of them have crappy reviews? You're like, how could this be? Why are there so many bad movies still being made when you know how expensive it's going to be to promote it? Yet, when you look at television programming, whether it be Amazon Prime or Netflix or HBO or frankly even network series, the reviews on those are usually it's very rare to see something less than 75% for a new television series, whether it be streaming or network, whereas films are usually below that.
Yeah. Well, I also do a podcast. I'm doing it with a young stand-up comedian guy, and I asked him. I said, "I want you to go see. I'll bring back. I want you to see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood." He said, "Well, when is it on?" I said, "It's at the theater right now." "Yeah, but when can I see it?" I said, "You can go to the theater and see it." "Yeah, I understand, but once again, when can I see it?" All they think about is streaming, seeing at home at their convenience, turning it on, turning it off. The kids, although economically, I get it. Okay, going to the movies is an expensive situation, but the ease of seeing films today on your streaming from your probably 20 sources, aren't there?
Yeah.
And
by the way, not only are they not seeing it on a big screen, they're not even seeing it on a large television. They're seeing it on a laptop or a phone.
Correct.
So in that sense,
yeah. I was on a flight just yesterday coming back from LA, and they had taken I was on American Airlines. They'd taken the screens out of the backs of the seats, which they're doing on most of the domestic flights. And I love watching movies on those screens. And the flight attendant said, "Well, you just connect your phone." I said, "I don't want to watch a movie on my telephone." Well, that's the easiest way right now.
Yeah.
Into our system.
Yeah, there's a big generational change happening right now, which probably also kind of explains the Oscars in the lower ratings and just starting to become antiquated because, you're celebrating.
Exactly. Antiquated. Very good word. Very good word. Yeah. Antiquated.
Yeah, you're celebrating
it's
something
92 years old.
Yeah, 92
it's 92 years old. And it shows it. It's 92. Yeah.
The people that still, I think, pay attention to it do it just out of tradition because, you and I, we grew up with movies in the movie theater. And you still, you like the tradition of the Oscars. And that's why, I kind of compare it to some extent to boxing. For me, I enjoy boxing because that's what I grew up with. That's a sport that I know. I know the history of it. I know, Muhammad Ali and down through, the various champions. And I'm just not ready to embrace an entirely new sport, MMA, even though that clearly is a superior sport to boxing. But because boxing, frankly, is kind of boring compared to ultimate fighting. But I just can't embrace ultimate fighting because it doesn't have the tradition with me. And I think the same thing may be true with film is that, for me, I like celebrating movies. I can compare them to my favorite movies when I was a kid and this and that. But for kids today coming up where it's not about the theater experience, it's about streaming and it's about these series that are all, like I said, they're excellent. That movies are kind of becoming a thing of yesterday.
Well, since I'm older than you, and when television, of course, you watch television. Radio came in, radio, then television, and you did not go to the cinemas. You didn't go to the theaters anymore. It took a couple of years for the motion picture industry to redevelop something more immersive, which was in those days Cinerama. Then it became CinemaScope. And 3D, it got you back to the movie theaters. I was interviewing a theater owner at a festival earlier this year in October, last year. And I said to him, he owns 3,000 theaters in the world. I said, "What are you going to do in the next 2 years?" He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "What are you going to do in the next 2 years?" He said, "I get it. Yeah, I know. We're going to have to find a way to make movies more immersive. We're going to have to think of something brand new to get you back to the movie theaters because for 2 years, I say 2, the streamers are going to kill you, except for Marvel and DC and comics and stuff like that. You're dead." He agrees to a point. But, hey, we've got new seats that rumble and do this and that. I know you do. But that's not the answer. You need better product. You need something to get us back.
Yeah. What are the numbers?
You know what, Paris?
Go ahead.
Sorry, go on. I was going to say something. Parasite could revolutionize what comes up at the Oscars in the future, maybe, because now the Academy members, those 8,000 guys mostly, are going to have to look at more international films, which they probably haven't been, because they've only been bombarded by the American system of those billboards and those ads and this and that. Now there's a chance that more foreign films could get up there, I guess. Isn't that what it sort of says with Parasite? There's a chance that other kind of filmmakers can get up there. If a Korean film can get up there.
Oh yeah.
Or Mexican the 1 year before. There could be a trend of international cinema.
Well, is this something that China is going to take over, like they've taken over so many things? What is the state of Chinese filmmaking?
It's big, but they have such a. I've dealt with them, and with them. I don't mean it that way, but they're so uptight about controversial subjects, and it's just a conservative nature, and with sex and so many different things that they're into action right now. Action films. They're terrified of sensitive subjects that they don't approve of. I mean, they control what's on those screens. American films do very well. Action films do very well in China, and they copy us beautifully and make some big action movies that are quite successful. Are they going to go into sensitive things like Marriage Story? A subject of that sort? Probably not. And anything with sex? No. Right now, China has its hands full of other things. Going to the movies, you wouldn't even be doing right now with this pandemic or whatever we're calling it.
And so many films, people probably don't realize that they've been sanitized so that they can take advantage of the Chinese market. I mean, give us some examples, if you know, about American films that have been altered. Even the version that we see is altered because they need it to do well in China.
Exactly. You'll even a Tom Cruise film, you'll put an Asian woman in the film or something because you have half your funding is coming from China. And I think that was the last Mission Impossibles or a few films. Even Spielberg, you're getting a lot of money from China and you're inserting characters just so it works in their market as well.
How many countries are as repressive, would you say, as China when it comes to content that the people are permitted to see?
Mostly Asian countries, I would say. Otherwise, it's a free-for-all everywhere else. The foreign language category here at the Academy, I think 90, each country can submit one film. And I think there were 90 this year. And somehow they whittled it down to these 5. I don't know how that process is done, how they got these 90 down to these 5 films. One from Poland and one from Spain and one from France and this one from South Korea. I don't know how that works. So what committee because they break into committees, like the documentaries are judged by a section of the Academy voters. I wonder how they do the foreign films. Don't know that. Now that's going to be a big deal because of Parasite. My goodness, the future. But someone's got to shake up the whole presentation of this traditional old-fashioned show.
Yeah. Well, one more question about the Academy and the Oscars, and then we'll go on and talk about your book and the festivals. So you're talking about 77% of the Academy is white male. First of all, is that
men?
We know that.
Yeah.
That
is absolutely true.
How do we know that? Is that a statistic that they put out there?
Yep. Yes.
So people lament the Oscars. They always do this. They complain about there not being enough African Americans nominated. They complain that there aren't enough women nominated. This year, it was about the director category, that there was no female directors nominated. So what's not clear to me is what exactly.
Except for the young lady that did Little Women. She was up there for best film.
Best film, but not best director.
That's true.
There were no female, so it was an all male directors, which, by the way, is not unusual. Virtually every year, it's all male. Only recently have female directors. Have there been more female directors? Is it Catherine Bigelow? I think she actually won. She's one of the best examples of a very successful female director.
Yeah, she got and film with Hurt Locker a couple of years back.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, my question is, when all the female presenters get up there and say all women are superheroes and say a lot of their politically correct stuff that they like to say and lament the lack of a female director being nominated, what exactly are they complaining about? Are they complaining that a female director was overlooked, or are they complaining that there aren't enough female directors? Are they wanting affirmative action when it comes to awards for female directors? I don't understand exactly what they're complaining about.
I agree. I think you've got to have some quality product, and you've got to get a producer and distributor behind you that does the campaign to go out there and promote the hell out of you. And same with, I watched recently, speaking of how many black directors, how many black filmmakers, and how many women, blah, blah, blah. Did you see the new Eddie Murphy film, which I actually thought he would be nominated for something for My Name is it called My Name is Dolomite? Did you catch that?
Yes. I saw the first 10 minutes and got distracted and didn't finish it, but
agree. I totally agree. And I watched it thinking, this is disappointing. I'm a big fan of Eddie Murphy's in the old days, and suddenly you're thinking you come back in a mediocre film, and I'm thinking, okay, were there any successful African-American films this year that should have been up there? Are there some women's films? There are a lot of women's films, but are they good enough for whomever is choosing these taste-making films? But the campaign seems to be the way you're chosen. Mm-hmm. So if I am a female director and I got a great movie, it seems like I've got to find someone that's got $50 million to promote me in all these ads, and I will be considered. It looks like that's how you're chosen.
Yeah. I mean, I used to defend companies my career as a lawyer against race discrimination, sex discrimination type lawsuits. And I did it for 8 years. And my conclusion at the end of it was that it really is very simple for these companies. It really has nothing to do with race or with sex. It has one thing in it, and it's called money. If you help a company,
that's right.
If you help a company make money, they keep you. If you don't help them make money, they get rid of you. Period. That's all they're concerned about. And so when it comes to female directors, if there's a female director out there that is going to, direct a great movie and help a studio or independents or financiers make money, they're going to hire her. And if she's not going to help, they're not. So, to lament that there's no female directors that are nominated, well, that's probably because there weren't enough female directors that were able to demonstrate that they can successfully make a profitable movie.
I think you have hit it on the head. And really, yeah.
So and so there's nothing wrong with, hey, let's encourage our girls.
So what did you charge? What did you charge an hour?
Back in those days, I think my billing rate was like $200 an hour, and now nobody works for $200 an hour.
I mentioned that to your listeners because of this Nerd Story movie, which I was fascinated with, and I was so shocked that the lawyers cost $680 an hour. I think Laura Dern and her fan, she won the Oscar too, as a lawyer. I thought, God, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
For a divorce.
Yeah. So, all right, give us. You ran the Chicago. You founded and ran the Chicago Film Festival for decades.
I did.
And also, am I saying it right to say that you basically advised a number of other festivals, including Cannes?
Absolutely, Venice, Berlin. I didn't do Cannes. I was on juries in Cannes, but I never advised them on films. I founded the Chicago International Film Festival when I was 22 years old, and a long time ago. And I bring this thing up because it was the 1967 festival where we introduced, the whole idea of the festival was to find new directors. We introduced a new director, a young man named Martin Scorsese. And he will say, yeah, I got my start in Chicago. Yep. I couldn't afford to go to it. They couldn't afford to fly me there, but that's where my first film was, and Harvey Keitel, and that's where my career began.
Thank you again to Michael Kutza. You should check out his podcast. It's called Nose to Nose. That's Michael Kutza's podcast, Nose to Nose. Thank you to our producer, Michael Parker. We'll be back next week with another episode of The Hidden Truth Show.
Thank you for listening to The Hidden Truth Show with Jim Breslow. You can find us at hiddentruthshow.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Hidden Truth Show. Join us again next week for another episode of Hidden Truth Show with Jim Breslow.